We're seeing crocodiles now in places where they haven't been seen in decades. If it appears that the crocodile is hanging around, then in coastal southeast Florida, which basically is defined as anything east of US 1, it needs to be 9 feet or over for us to attempt to capture and move it. We call it translocate it, but basically move it to another area, away from where people live. Or if it's exhibiting egregious behavior that would prevent it from remaining where it's at, and that and that could be something like approaching people too closely, not retreating when people are near it. That's something, it doesn't happen very often, but we leave that potential in there in case we do have an animal that it's exhibiting that kind of behavior. Also, regardless of its size, if it's in somebody's swimming pool, obviously if it's just on the bank, that's not really up in their yard, because that's quite normal for crocodiles to get out in the sun, so they might be up on the bank. However, if they're into the front yard or if they're roaming around the neighborhood, then obviously we'll respond regardless of how big they are.
This recent incident in Coral Gables, this crocodile was, I believe, 12 feet in length, and you guys had removed it twice from the area, and it came back. Why do you think that was?
Well, it's quite normal for crocodilians to return to their capture site. They have a very strong site fidelity and the ability to navigate back. They have a homing instinct that's similar to what migratory birds have. They use any number of cues in order to navigate back. Probably celestial, the Earth's magnetic field. They may use olfactory cues. They may use visual cues. They may recognize the skyline of a particular area. And apparently distance is not really a significant factor either. There are some crocodile species that where they also have to deal with them as problems, where they've relocated them a significant distance, 100 kilometers or more.
So they really can travel.
And they find their way back eventually.
Wow.
So in most cases, they either return to their capture site or they probably die in the process. Either they die as a result of capture stress after we've released them.
Which is what happened
Which is what happened
with
this particular one, although it died in our possession, and that's happened once before in the last couple of years. Or in its attempt to come back to its capture site, something bad happens to it.
Well, I know that there's a few really important tips that people should know if they do have to coexist peacefully with a crocodile, especially people living by the waterways here in Florida. What are some of the main tips that you tell people?
And that was a good point you just made. It's not that if you just happen to know that there are crocodiles, assume that there are. If you live in southeast Florida.
Better to be safe than sorry.
There are going to be crocodiles around. As I said, the crocodile population is recovering in Florida. We're seeing crocodiles where they've not been seen in decades. So you have to assume that there may be a crocodile around eventually. And the most prudent thing to do is to adapt to that now and take the precautions that you need to be safe around that. And the number one, of course, thing is not to swim where crocodiles may occur. We don't tell people what to do. That's a recommendation. People make their own decisions. But if people didn't get in the water, there's no chance that a crocodile might bite them, or very little chance. The most important thing, other than people's safety, is people's pets. Crocodiles see a dog or a cat as a small mammal. It's not a dog or a cat to them. It's just another small mammal. They've been eating
prey.
small.
They're the
it's
predator,
prey.
and that's their prey.
It's a small mammal, things that they've been eating for millions of years. So people's pets are at significant risk from crocodiles.
And dogs like to go swimming too.
Well, and the dogs like to get in the water, and that's where they're really in danger. But they're also in danger at the water's edge. And another thing, possibly with the dog particularly, is they have no instinct to be afraid of crocodiles, where a wild animal might learn to be afraid or have an instinctual fear of another predator. Dogs do not face predation like wild animals do. So they may not be afraid of, they may approach the crocodile. In most cases, these situations where crocodiles are catching people's dogs are almost totally avoidable.
Exactly.
You can't say totally avoidable because things happen sometimes. People's dogs get out of the yard. They get run over sometimes because they get out of the yard. And the same thing could happen with a crocodile as well. I mean, it could just be an accident. But we recommend that people keep their dogs at least 10 feet back from the water's edge, and certainly never allow them to swim where there may be crocodiles.
Yeah.
And that's virtually everywhere now in South Florida. In fact, you shouldn't, anywhere in Florida probably, you shouldn't let your dog swim because of alligators. Alligators are being much more common. And they're in virtually every freshwater area you can think of. So you need to be careful anywhere in Florida. There are some places that are maybe a little less risky, but if there's a potential that there may be a crocodile there, then you need to be really careful about getting your dog in the water. And we really highly suggest that people who live on the water and have dogs fence their backyards.
Put a fence
just
up.
to make sure
Right.
that there's a separation.
Build a barrier between.
Exactly, between
Right.
the crocodile and the alley. I mean, between the crocodile and the dog.
And I know people also shouldn't wait to see if there's signs, such as the one
Right.
that you brought here. You know, they shouldn't wait to see one of these. This is just, you should just be aware. If you live in
Exactly.
Florida, if you live by the water, you should
Exactly.
just know.
We provide these signs to managing authorities. We don't give them to individuals, obviously, but we will provide these to managing authorities, and they'll post them in their neighborhood or at their place of business. These are fairly common in the Keys. You'll see these around in the Keys because crocodiles are quite more common down there. But and that's just an advisory to people that there may be crocodiles there. And of course,
Just
in
a
the Keys,
reminder.
there are many more visitors.
Yeah.
So it's more important probably to let people know, if you run a business particularly that deals with tourists, that there's a potential that there could be crocodiles around, and you know, don't let your dog out to the boat ramp to get a drink of water or
Right.
to go for a swim, because there's a possibility he might not come back.
Right.
And most of these tragedies that happen with people's pets are totally avoidable. People just need to take the precautions to make sure their dogs don't get near the water, and the fence is the best way to do that.
And that's the good news, that it is almost 100% avoidable, like you said, with the right prevention. And one other point I wanted to make, you were talking about how crocodiles have a natural fear of humans. With that, I think one of the main things they tell people is not to ever feed the crocodiles, because that will make them keep coming back and sort of lose their fear. So they're not scared to come up to humans. Is that right?
Yes, very true. We call it habituation, but
Okay.
and that can happen in several ways. There's positive reinforcement, which comes from people probably feeding them, or there's just benign association. In situations where crocodiles are used to seeing people, and there may not be any positive reinforcement, they eventually, over time, become accustomed to the people, just like squirrels and raccoons
Used to
and
them.
stuff in the park.
Okay.
You know, birds in the park will come land on your table. Of course, they may be getting fed too, but they just get used to the presence of people, and over time learn that people aren't a danger to them. So it can happen in both those ways. It's certainly worse and can happen faster when people give them a positive reinforcement. And one of the things that is really prevalent in coastal Florida is people cleaning fish in their backyard. A lot of people who have ocean or bay
If they
access,
go fishing and then they
have a fish cleaning station right at their dock in
Okay.
their backyard. They'll clean their fish and throw the fish scraps into the water right there. And that positive reinforcement can potentially make a crocodile approach people. In addition to directly feeding crocodiles, which is illegal, and you will be punished
okay.
if you're caught. You'll be punished, and that's fairly serious. But even feeding other wildlife where there may be crocodiles around, like feeding the fish, feeding the ducks and stuff, that's potential prey for a crocodile.
That could still
and
attract
that
them.
could concentrate, you know, a prey for an animal and cause him to hang around there.
Okay.
And that's another thing that you need to be cautious of doing where there may be crocodiles present.
You might not be feeding them directly, but if you're feeding ducks,
Inadvertent
for
feeding is the
example.
same thing to a crocodile.
Okay. Wow. Lindsay, thank you so much for being with us today. And if people have questions, if they have a nuisance crocodile, can you tell us where they should call?
One of the things that we provide is this brochure. It's a guide to living with crocodiles. It's available on our website at myfwc.com/crocodile.
Okay.
It has a lot of common sense safety tips about crocodiles, as well as our phone number. If they have other issues or they have actually concerns about a crocodile, then they can contact us and we'll try to help them.
Thank you so much again.